Baruch you know, Elena Vilea Vecino, Le Havram, Le Yitzchak, Leaka, Ella Gadagi, Bafanar, Ella Young, Casa de Pevin Canelco, Zecha Chazavis, maybe go leave David name, the Masha Baby Ava, Melchaiser, Vishim Bagin, Baruch you know, again, Adu Gilbert, Lila Madame, Glacia, Masha, Ruff, America, Gesha, the Kaka Haim, the Chazim, Haim, Mason, Rockman, Robin, Sam, Nathan, Fifalim, Umater, Umekaim, and Nasi, the Chanel for. Nicholas about give rest me the middle of math means Mekhaim Yeshua, and Manatala highest Mason, Mercato, you know, Mekaya Mason. Nakti Shaf and Area Talkani of South Side Sarpik Idish, Hamishalashim the Hagadusha, Kaka, Karazel Zeb, Yamar. Kaddish, and I suppose by Flores give by the Masam Shabbat by Mrim. Where if you want to make come over the deeper rake of Kachakaba, Zuble Mar. You can I lie my ex and the Davadara, Lilia. Ata Kaddish, Bishop Kaddish, you could actually play in Hallelujah Hasela, but I thought, you know, Bella Kaddish. Ata Kanya Ladam Das, Malame, Lanish, Binovadas, for I thought, you know, Lanena Das. Ashvina Ovina the Sarsa of Carvina Kina by the Seka, Hazini Bisushua Shalema Panepa, but Hotalina, Erecta Bisushua, the Hanovino Kihatar Makana Makina Kipashana, Kiota Vesalakato, but Hotalina, Makanuna marvelous layout. Reno Vanino Viva Riva Riveno, Galina Marilla Machimecha, Yelga Hazakato, but Hotalina, Bell Israel. The Raven area, Shane of Niba Shaki, Sihila Sinuata, Valley, or unfortunately, Makasina, Kelmeth, Nemon, Rockman, Kata, the Fechalea Maestro. Oracle Modern Island, West Space culminates to Russell, the 17th Palama to the Broca, Alpany Adama Sabini Vichbeca, where Shenatan Kashanim, the Broca, Kill type Mativatum, Verkashanim, Berkata, Verkashanim. The Kavish ever got the same saying studies the Kamis Gulay saying with Captain Yak. Entertain the work at all, you know, the comments you pay a maestro. When she was shifting version of the Asenic of the Hill of us, many young and Panaco, Malakino, as all the Levada for the Hasid Rafa with the Mish over Katal, you know, smell paint, stock, Mishpal, Melamashi, near Matisi, Kalamin, the Kurgay video, Holovian, Kamir, Decorates of Malakos, or each of air, Zakras, the Shabbos, with the Magar, the Saknam, the hair of Yamin over Katal, you know, Shavira. Allah said to give all Kasin Valley basis up later space of fair value at the Quality moon nor of Nakalain with its Sakata will call my Vision comments with him talking in my line and especially comment up number Katadi no Vision of top of the game. Really you shall Rahmetashi with this kind of Kasha in the Bata. You can see that without the mayor of Sakata the Caribbean Mina Bina Island Katadi no Benay Shalayan. That's a mock without the Carnator Joseph, Kill Shots, Kivinokoya, Berkatadina, Mathmath, any show. Jamakan Lano, other Lano of Rahman Rahman, with Alba Rahman Rathis as to Filicino. Yoshimel to Fils Sakon and Matam of Paneco, Rankino, break a Mata Shivino, Yato Shimet to Filas Kobe, Berkatadina, Shimet Villa. A table and Lano Malcolm, so Vilis Villas of Jaheva Hoship, the Jim Seka, Visha Israel, Sipilasam, the Abba Sakal Rossi, the rest of the main of Tim Rockman, but I thought, you know, my position, not so, yeah. But the Marathon was organizing the then come to the second, Mr. Bean, the colony, but they saw. When the second ship climbing money, Valley by second, ship is every black of it's all right. I don't feel the color of Rockman, I think it's time past step, keep me island, give you a law. I'll fill him with reference, some of his station called Canaan, time and island by the color climbing the hotel. Haggadah Island Kitai Vaishwa Sina Vesasina Salalatai, but Fatwa the nine. Atash Palakana like Sim Shalom Taka Rakayim Kayim Kain Vakasi Rakmim, Ali Valkai Salamekal, but anyone Avinu Kilana Katha Gibar Panakana Sata. Gibar Panakana Sata and Mother in the first time I said, Utraka Viraka Rakim Kaim Vishalim with Mineka, the Verkas Amka Yisra Bakal so Vashal Bishameka Barakatali, America Sami Sabashalai. Mirabah, Yom the Record save, Yamek save, ask for Kari, Vikar Bishika, if I if we make a kind of basis job, I love his Makari from Rome. Ish Mirabah Parakla, my spread, Bishop, please spare Visa, Visa, Visa, Dar, Visa, Lay, Visa, Low, she made the good of it. They look up because of Vishras, because of Nekamasa, Damir, Belma, and Rome. These covers to the lights and the Visa, kind of when the Vishma, and Rome. Yeshalom Rabami. What's the Shalom Rabapu? Yes, Shalom Alina Valkai, Alina Shamela on the position. Whenever my other animal called the Lord, if I am movie, and then I father should my God. Amen. Amen. Amen. Amen. Amen. Anybody just a reminder, whoever did not do the daily Nasi, now that we've entered the month of Nisan, we do the Nasi every day. It's on page 390, not done it yet. So a few minutes before page 392, today is Nasi Sahar. Nights start today in Jewish history. Today's day is Nisan, second day of Nisan. First of all, on the second of Nisan, one day after the inauguration of the tabernacle, we know yesterday, or Chodesh Nisan, was the day where the Mishkan was inaugurated. Moshe prepared the first red heifer, the first ever Hara Aduma. The rabbis say the Red Bull, in order to ritually purify the Jewish nation in preparation for bringing of the Hara Pesach from the newly erected. And as we know, as we mentioned earlier today, today is also Beis Nisan, as the yard site of the Rebbe Rashab, fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, Shalom Dever. He was born in white Russian town of Lubavitch in 1860. After his passing of his father, Shmuel, which was the Maharaj, he assumed the leadership of Chabad Lubavitch in 1882. And famed for his phenomenal mind and analytical treatment of Chabad students. So the Rebbe Rashab delivered 2,000 Imarim over the 38 years of his leadership, so that he
is Nasius. And in 1890s, we know obviously that he succeeded pretty young because his father, the Rebbe Maharash, passed away at a very young age, I believe 38, the Rebbe Maharash. The first institution of Jewish learning to combine the study of the body of prayer with its mystical soul. And it was this unique yeshiva that produced the arm of learned and inspired and devoted to them who in decades to come would literally give their lives to keep Judaism alive under Soviet rule. We know that the Rebbe Rashab was founder of Chabad Yeshivas of Simchas Mimim, and in 1915 he was forced to flee Lubavitch from the advancing World War I, front and relocated to the Russian city of Rostov. And in his final years, which we know that Rostov is his burial place, he began the heroic battle against the new communist regime's efforts to destroy Jewish faith throughout the Soviet Union. And his famous words before he passed away on Beis Nisan in the year 1920 were, "I'm going to heaven and I leave you the writings." In a sense, basically saying that Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe also said that even after a Nasi or Rebbe physically leaves this world, we still have his teachings and his writings, and that's how they want us to connect. That's how the Rebbe wants us to connect to them. Even after the physical passing, we can still connect to the Rebbe through their writings. So this is the Rebbe Shab was saying, when I'm going to heaven, but I'm leaving you the writings, my Sfarim. This is going to be my your way of connecting to me, even after he's not physically in the world anymore. Just a little bit there on Beis Nisan. Tomorrow, tonight in Jewish history. Tonight in Jewish history, Gimel Nisan. Is Reynolds, your birthday tonight or tomorrow night? Tomorrow night? Valid? So tomorrow night. But tonight in Jewish history, Gimel Nisan also is the day that the Levites, the Leviim, following the procedure that Hashem prescribed, Moshe inducted the Levites into the service of the Mishkan. We know that every tribe was given a service, what they were doing. Every day, like we're doing now, the Nasi or every prince of the tribe would bring a special gift to the Mishkan. So the Levites were inducted straight into the service, to the Avodah. That was their job. Their Avodah, because the sons of Kahas didn't, Levnei Kahas, like Nasi, like we said yesterday and yesterday's Nasi, they didn't carry anything. Yeah, because the Avodah, the actual work, was upon them. The induction ceremony included sprinkling them with the ashes of the paraduma, which was prepared the day before. And like we said, that today was the first time that there was a red heifer, the paraduma was prepared. Okay, now we'll continue with the halachos of Matzah Hoker Pesach. I think I believe where the rabbi is up to. All right, so let's start from Hay. Talking about the idea of the kneading and baking of the matzahs. We spoke about last time what you're technically allowed to make matzahs on, what counts, what needs to be kosher, so like what would have to be something that needs to be kosher, and things that can be used, like especially if you put flour in it. We spoke about how flour can get absorbed into the appliance that you're using. So halacha hey, when the flour is measured, it should not be stuffed into the measuring vessel because there's reason to fear the dough might not be kneaded well, and particles of flour will be found in the matzah because, like we said last time, flour. And it could get stuck into very small crevices and surfaces. And let's say, so the particles of flour will be found in the matzah. And let's say you take this matzah now you put it into soup. This could potentially become from it. That's why Chabad and other people have the whole idea of gebrach, of being careful about gebrach, but that's a whole other story. And care should be taken not to put the flour near the water, so the flour dust should not fall into the water. Similarly, the person who measures the flour should not go near the dough or the water. It's good to be careful needlessly because the hands will warm it slightly. You should always be very careful when you're dealing with flour, when you're making matzah, because even the slightest amount of liquid that enters into this flour will potentially make this dough in a certain amount of time to become pumic. So we want to be as careful as possible. It should be washed at the vessel that's used for kneading when we make this dough, should not have any holes or cracks where particles of dough might remain and become pumic. So why specifically do we care if there's holes and cracks in the actual appliance of how we're making the dough for the matzah? The vessel should not be placed. Basically, the idea of the cracks and the holes is like we just said about the flour. That if it gets into a tiny little crevice or a little surface, that will literally be impossible to get the flour out of. It's sticky and it's gonna eventually it's gonna corrode and get stuck in these little surfaces. And then you'll always have a chash, you'll have a worry of potentially having chametz in there over Pesach, or when you're making the matzah could become chametz because of any bit of liquid that goes in there and automatically activate this flour to become leavened bread, which is coming. So the vessel should not be placed on pillows or pads, lest it become warm. And care must be taken that every 18 minutes, the vessel is thoroughly cleaned. That's the process of making matzah. Not only that it has to be under 18 minutes, but that every 18 minutes, the vessel that you're making the dough for the matzah should be thoroughly cleaned and the hands thoroughly washed. The boards and rolling pins must be carefully inspected to make sure that they have no holes or cracks. They should be thoroughly cleaned at least every 18 minutes as well. And the tools that make the preparations must also be cleaned of even the smallest particle of dough. That means like the tools where, if you're wondering like how you get the holes in the matzah, these special tools like to punch holes into the dough. So those tools as well should also be cleaned at least every 18 minutes. And the tool, and also the peel, the shovel-like tool with which the matzahs are put into the oven, kind of like a pizza peel, like the shovel where you put pizzas into the oven. So you also have them for matzah. The peel should also be cleaned, inspected for any cracks where a particle of dough might be caught and become chametz. Because even the slightest little piece of flour that falls into a crack on any of these vessels that we're using, these palim, to make matzah, could potentially become chametz. Halacha zayin. If anything with a sharp flavor fell into the dough, this is a very interesting one, and this is especially when you learn tzvicha, you learn this idea of davar charet, the idea of a sharp substance like an onion or a lemon that could literally disqualify the whole thing and either make it non-kosher, make it called basar b'chalav, milk and meat, whatever the situation is. A sharp item can automatically cancel out everything. It's crazy. So you got to be very careful with it. So here we're talking about a davar charet. Flavor fell into dough. Let's say it was salt, spices, or even the smallest quantity of fresh lime. You cut a piece of lime, and that fell into the dough. Let's say you're making other things in the kitchen as well, Pesach, and and what happens? Someone else is cooking in the kitchen with you, and a tiny squeeze of lime might have fell into the dough, or lemon. The use of the entire dough is forbidden. Why? Because it has become heated by this davar charet. This lime is considered, so to speak. What does that mean? A lime is bitter, it's not spicy like a hot pepper. Obviously, a hot pepper is also included in this category. But basically, like we just said, anything under the category of davar charet, something that will activate bitterness, sourness into a food, can automatically disqualify an entire batch of dough. Like we said, if it's like taste of kosher, non-kosher, or milk and meat, will automatically make it not non-kosher. If a grain of wheat is found in the dough, you should quantity of dough as thick as your finger all around that grain and throw it away, and the rest of the dough may be used. But then it's not as serious. But the idea of the davar charet is pretty serious, where even a squeeze of lemon or lime can disqualify your entire matzah and make it chametz, just because of the idea of a spicy object. That care must be taken not to leave the dough even for a moment without working it. Always be working. As soon as the dough is completed, it should be divided into portions and handled into the rollers. And care should be taken, therefore, as large as to be handled by the rollers. If some of the dough is left with the person who hands out the portions, you should keep kneading it so that should not lie idle even for a moment. So what we're basically keep stressing the same idea here is never leave the dough unattended. Always make sure you're watching the dough when you're making the matzah. And obviously the matzah, the people working in the matzah bakery have to be so careful about all these little details of never taking their eyes off the dough. Even for a minute, always being near it, making sure either no spice to it or any bit of extra flour that might have been on someone's warm hands or hands with water. All these different details to make sure that the matzah is always being washed, so we don't come to a hashash of coming. The rollers should do their work at full speed and not waste any time on giving the matzah a specific shape. They should pay close attention that no particles of the dough are left on the board. And that's why you'll see that generally matzahs are usually pretty round, pretty circular, like the shmur matzahs. But once in a while, you have an off-shaped matzah in the corner. It's like a little bit either a crack, completely round. Because it's not an art. We're not working to make our matzahs look beautiful and round, like 100%, like a perfect circle. If there's a few little minor misshaping, it's totally fine. They shouldn't overdo it and try to make it look like a beautiful circle. They should pay close attention that no particles of dough are left on the board. Completely clean the board from all dough whatsoever, so there's no flour left over. And also that no dough clings to their hand. Interesting. As you notice any dough sticking to their hands, they must wash them thoroughly. You know, when you bake, obviously, flour is very sticky. You mix it with water and eggs and everything, and all of a sudden your hands become pretty messy and sticky. So even the smallest particle on your hands, got to make sure you wash when you're baking matzah. As soon as the matzah is ready, it should be perforated quickly, and you should right away punch holes into the matzah right away. They should not make any design with the perforations, not sourdough bread. We're not scoring and making fancy designs on the matzah. You're just punching holes. But they should rush at top speed and put it into the oven immediately. Great care should be taken not to hold it even for a moment in front of the opening of the oven, for it will become chametz quickly. Necessary, therefore, make sure that the person handling the matzahs and handing the matzah to the baker should be a Yirei Shamayim and a Torah scholar, and who will be meticulously vigilant to make sure that everything is being done properly, not wasting any time. Under 18 minutes, hand the matzah to the next guy, put it into the oven. That's it. Zehu. A God-fearing person take care before baking his matzahs to have the oven well heated again, and the coals spread over the entire oven. Or who knows if the person who baked matzahs before was scrupulously careful about it. You always got to be careful to make sure that the oven is still well heated, because that's another issue of how it could potentially become chametz. So 3 minutes. The baker should be very careful to see to it that none of the matzahs are folded over. Also, this is also another important detail. I remember learning about this last year. The idea of a folded matzah is called a matzah kafula. If you have a matzah which is, when it goes into the oven, sometimes the dough can fold over. When you make bread or whatever it is, sometimes the dough can fold. So to make sure with matzah that no dough gets folded over, it's one flat cracker, and that one matzah does not touch the other. They got to be completely separate from each other when they're going into the oven. For in the place where one matzah touches another, or where it's folded over and it doesn't bake as quickly, it could become chametz. Because what happens is now it folds over, or another matzah touches another matzah in the oven, and it doesn't bake as quickly, and this could be over 18 minutes now without even realizing. You have a timer, let's say, set for 18 minutes, but when you have this dough folded over and it potentially could be touching other matzahs as well, then it could even become chametz before the time of 18 minutes, just because of how much contact it's having with another matzah or with more dough. In the event that a matzah is folded over or becomes blown up, sometimes you'll see with matzahs, you probably notice that when you pull a shmura matzah out of the box, sometimes you'll see there's a bubble forming like on the matzah where it like pops up a bit, like I guess kind of like it's necessary to break off and throw away that piece. That piece is completely chametz. Interesting. But the rest may be eaten. You don't need to throw out the whole matzah. That little piece that bubbled over, give a bubble matzah or a folded matzah. When what the matzah maker will do is he'll take it out of the oven, take off that little piece, and the rest of the matzah is fine. Now, obviously, you don't have a shleima anymore. You don't have a complete matzah like for the seder, but it's still a kosher matzah, 100%. However, if the matzahs touched each other in the oven while still moist, so it's still liquid, and they may be eaten, since it's already done. It's a b'diavad case. Obviously, the best thing is not to use the matzah kula, matzah that's folded over in the oven altogether. But b'diavad, if this already happened, totally fine. You can use this matzah, no problem. A blown up matzah is one in which it's evident that the matzah has separated in thickness, and the bubble is as wide as a thumb. All right, Meyer. Page 118.
Now where's the pizza? I'm hungry.
It's excellent in baking matzah, right? Anybody on the 1,000? Floor is open. Benji?
Coming up there soon.
İnşallah şuna bak. Normalde bir hafta sever. Şapkan evi görmüş şey var. Hayır efendim. Ögümen efendim. Hayır konuşuyor bak. Allah için bakıyorum ben. Hey şey var. Bakalım. Hayır spirit. Değişen insan Ayun na lang sa share sa sa damer mo rin. Discover sa kada mga individual rin. Gusto maraming travel time to the line of course rin. Ay sa mga huli ang line of course rin. أنا وعلينا من الله وعلينا مولي أنا خرج ما قال Amen. I'll tear out the copies. I will share it because there's so much more that we're not going to actually as well. The answer to that is like I'm taking a show, but you should show us that.
sorry. Pues a mí la familia que me hace Rabbi Bernstein. No, that's not possible. That's not this.
Yeah, I'll be taking the list.
Really?
Just go down the hospital list.
Oh, very good.
It's not a name. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll be taking the list. On the list. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Robert, you're able to let me just begin it? I thought that we don't keep a week. Okay, go ahead.